All right, hey there, everybody. So I think that I kind of jumped in a little bit too much in the first episode without really, since this is an introductory course, I'm kind of assuming that everybody has kind of already a basic working knowledge of CSS, but just in case people don't, I think I should probably take a step back and go over some of the basics. And if if you already know this, then just bear with me. It shouldn't take that long, but I do feel like it's necessary to say that I wanted to, kind of go over things. Uh, Inside a style sheet that's linked uh, to an index to a web page, um, you have several key components within the syntax of CSS that I should let you know about. All right. So the first thing is what you're declaring is going to be called a selector. So you can use, there's three different types of selectors, and then we already showed you how to group selectors up here. Basically, with a comma, you can group all of these together, and they will get all of these same declarations that these properties and values will give you. All right. So you have an HTML element, so an H1 tag. You have a class, which starts with a period. You have an ID. All right, which starts with a pound. And then you can group those selectors again together. Now, inside a actual CSS rule, this is a rule. Okay, this whole thing is a rule. It's for the h1 underscore heading class, which can be applied multiple times. Now, classes, that's another difference. Classes in a web page can be applied multiple times, and it's the same across all of them. ID selectors are only available to you for the one HTML element that is declared using that ID tag. Okay, so it's more powerful to use a class because you can use it multiple times. In each of these, you have your selector, which in this case it's the class. You have, excuse me, the declaration, which is always surrounded by curly braces, and the declaration is made up of a property, which in this case is color, and the value, which in this case is maroon. So obviously some properties are going to take numerical format, others are going to take hexadecimal format, RGB format. There's several different ways of doing that, but we'll get into that later. Okay, so those are the base components of excuse me, of CSS, and everything that you do in CSS is going to have to follow those rules. And also, as you're writing your CSS, realize that everything that's applied it's a top-down format. So what's applied at the top, if it's overridden at something at the bottom rule set is going to take precedent. Okay, so just remember that if you overwrite one of your rules by accident, the overwritten aspects of those rules are going to be taken, not the original ones. So considering that, we're going to take another look at, we're going to move on to basically a couple of ways to do CSS. All right, now we've done the first way of doing CSS is by linking to a style sheet. Now this particular style sheet is actually linked inside the web page. You can, however, link to an external style sheet, which if you look at, say, jQuery's got their own CSS. Okay, so you can link to any of their libraries CSS files from the internet. So you don't necessarily have to be working within your site. Okay, you can link to an external style sheet as well. You can also, inside the head, put styles inside style tags. All right. So you can do a test class here, and we'll say color green. All right, and then down here under H2, we'll go class equals test. So now our hello world's H2 should be green. Okay. Now the other thing you can do is actually put in a style, what they call inline. So this is an inline style. All right, and we'll just keep it simple. Save that, and it's changed to purple. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of doing this? The disadvantage of putting styles either inline or in your code in the head are that it makes your code messy, number one. It makes it harder to kind of understand, and it makes you less organized. So are there reasons to do it? Sure. If you just need to change one thing, you have a client that's desperate they want to change the color of their headings, or they want to do something simple, with one particular item just to make it stand out, go ahead and throw it in there. But to be honest with you, it's just as easy to open. You're editing, and if you were to throw the style in the sheet, you would have to add the class or whatever it is, or add it to another class that's existing on that element. You have to open two files. To me, it's no big deal. I would rather do the style in the sheet rather than do an inline style, even if it's simpler, just because I would rather keep the code clean. I put comments at the end of every div just because of wanting to keep neat and organized and being able to look at this later and say, why did I do this? Why did I do that? So to me, that's more important to do it, keeping it organized. All right. So that's that. Those are some of the basics of CSS and kind of what we do and why we do it. All right. So I guess the next thing that we should look at is some of the other things that we can actually do here. All right. So what we can do, let's throw since we already have some information on the body, why don't we do a class for the body? All right. So we'll call this body override because we're styling the body within a group of tags. Theoretically, what we could do is just why don't we do that? Because that's probably better. All right, we're going to flush the body here as well. 0 pixels, margin 0 pixels. But now we don't have to have a class for the body override, and we can do our styling here. All right. So what we want to do is apply a background color to the entire page. All right, and in this case, the whole body of the HTML document is the entire page that's visible. Okay, so what we did in the middle of the page, if you look at it, is we put a container that's gray and that goes basically in the middle of the body. The body includes all this white area. All right. Oops. There we go. And so what we want to do is inside the body rule, we're going to add a background color, and the syntax for this is background dash color. All right, and then we're going to use hexadecimal values, and I've picked one out here which is kind of a light green. And this is kind of where you become really creative. Okay. Oop, I'm sorry, I mean the light blue. I did not mean light green. Anyway, so we have this body that's light blue. Now, if you are going to match things, and when you're being creative, you want to kind of lay things out somewhat. You want to think about all these color combinations you're going to use beforehand, but just off the fly, I don't like the way that blue and gray looks together. So basically, I'm going to change this to white, and I know that the short code for white is FFF. And hexadecimals are either 6 or 3 characters. If you have all of the same characters, you can shorten that to just 3, so it'll be the same. And I did that with the black earlier as well. So black officially is actually 6 zeros, but we just shortened it. There we go. So now we have a white box in the middle. All right. And what we want to do, sorry, as we're working on this is we want to be able to look at a couple of different things. All right. Now with the coloring options we have, this is a hexadecimal value. We can also use a just regular color and call it white. And this actually won't need to comment this out so that that's another part. Comments are in that format. So if you have slash asterisk asterisk slash, that's a comment. Anything in between is a comment. Okay, in the CSS format. All right, so we'll save that. Everything should stay the same. So, oh, I'm sorry, I changed that on the body. That's not what I was looking to do. I meant that to do down here. And we'll comment out this line. And now we should see a blue background with a white in border. All right. Now what you can also use is Rgb value, and I don't use that a whole lot, but we'll try this here. I believe .255.0.0 or comma 0, comma 0. Nope, that's red. So we'll show you this. That's one way of doing it, but Rgb value white. I'm going to take a guess and say that 255 without actually opening that site. That's it. So 3 255s is white. So that gives you 3 different ways of actually doing color. So you've got your hexadecimal, the actual color name, which they're base colors. We're not using many. I don't remember exactly how many of them there are, but there's not a whole lot. Or you can use the RGB color system. And most of your most of that will be basically preference. I don't see why one would be better than the other than that hexadecimal and RGB are going to give you more control over the custom colors to get really more shades and more gradients of different colors. I wouldn't use the actual, unless you're using just simple colors like white, green, blue, red, then the base colors are fine. I find myself using hex values most often other than, you know, for other things. So why don't we just go ahead and leave that white using the hex values. All right, we'll save that. And now the other option that we can do for the background is to use a background image. Website background. And we'll use something. We'll throw this in the right folder. and we'll just call that bg.jpg. All right. Now the other thing we can do is, instead of having a color, we can use a background image. So the syntax for that is background image. You're going to give it a URL, which in this case is just going to be a folder, and then bg.img JPEG. And now, one thing of note, um, we're calling an image inside the image folder, which is in the root. However, this file is actually down one level inside the CSS folder. So in order to do that, we do a // which means to go up one level, then follow the path into the image folder, and then the file. Okay, so you always have to think about the levels of your. There we go, and I put that on the wrong one again. All right, so this is up here for the body. There we go. So um, one of the easiest ways to save time is to use image sprites, and we're going to get into that later on, where you can load up specific positioning of an image. But using something like this as a base, a base background image, if you know that your page isn't going to be very long and the image that you have will actually fit, it's a nice way to lay out, a pretty cool looking site. You can also use different size containers and classes. If you want to use only sections of it, you want to use a particularly dark section of it or a particularly light section of the background, you can do that. So I think we'll stop it here, and then in the next one we'll pick up some of the different, some of the other classes and things that we're going to need to know going into it, going into the more complicated sections of CSS. But hopefully that gives you a good basic layout of kind of the syntax and the rules, the way CSS is laid out. Again, thanks for watching. Hit that like button below if you enjoyed it, and leave me a comment if you feel like it. Thanks a lot.